This Board of Directors meeting of Columbia 911 Columbia Communications District, October 25th, 2022. I'm Bruce Halsey, President of the Board, and would the rest of the board members like to introduce yourselves?
Jeff Flatt, Rainier.
Rob Anderson, Scappoose.
Henry Herman, representing St. Helens area.
Administrative.
And Shelley's on the phone, representing the Vernonia, Miss Birkenfeld area. Staff, we have Mike Fletcher, Executive Director, Nancy Edwards, CFO. We have Danelle Hooper, Operations Manager, Nathan Hughes, Technical Manager, Alex Edinger, Training Coordinator, Chandra Egan, CAD Specialist. Mr. Russell?
Okay, I'd like to open the joint meeting with the 911 Advisory Committee for October 25th, 2022. I'm Mike Russell, I'm the Advisory Committee Chair, and I'd like to allow the other committee members to introduce themselves. Start at this end.
Yeah, Greg Brady, Westport Fire.
Josh Marks representing Scappoose Fire.
Rob Davis, Vernonia Fire.
Joe Kaczynski, Miss Birkenfeld.
Eric Smythe, Columbia River.
Joel Medina, Columbia River.
Sean Carnahan, Vernonia Police Department.
Steve Sherrick, Cloud Kenai Fire District.
Stephen Lugas, Scappoose Police.
Yeah, go ahead, Kelly.
Oh, Phil Niles, Oregon Department of Forestry.
And that's it, sir.
That's it?
I think that's it.
Ready? Into public.
Yep.
Is there any member of the public who would like to address the board? Remember, there is a maximum of 3 minutes.
Board President Halsey, I would like to address, and I would also ask for consideration of a minute or two more if needed, since the board meeting and the advisory committee are combined this morning. I might be able to get 15 minutes, but I'll certainly try.
We're going to try and keep it at 3, please.
Good morning to both the board and advisory committee. For the record, my name is Tyler Miller, Scappoose resident and Scappoose City Council. I'd like to address both the board and the advisory committee on a few topics and offer some perspective for consideration. The first is the recurring topic of the band of the new radio system, whether it be VHF 700 or 800. And I'd like to encourage these two groups to exit from that conversation. And the reason is because that is an engineering aspect that really the engineers need to determine and the vendor needs to determine, because you all are going to ask them to guarantee and warranty their work. And for us to come forward and tell them what band and other technical specifications on an engineering level that we want them to use and then require them to warranty their work is problematic. What I would encourage the end user groups to focus on is what your needs are for your operations to support your operations. Things like the coverage, emergency buttons, PTT ID, AVL location services. Those are all things that you as an end user group should be telling the vendors and the engineers that you need. But the band, the wire in the wall, so to speak, should not really be concerning to the end users so long as it actually works and gives you what you need. If you plug your computer into the wall and it works for you to do your job, why do you care what wire's in the wall? That's a way to look at it. Point being, if this group starts describing what band and other engineering aspects are to be used by a manufacturer, you can't really expect that manufacturer, that vendor, to warranty the system. What's going to happen if there's an issue with the system and everybody's going to be pointing fingers at each other? The vendor's going to say, well, you wanted VHF. And I'll remind you that back in 2018 when Motorola came out and did their presentation with Tate and others, Motorola specifically said, and there's a recording, that they will not warranty VHF coverage. So again, I would encourage this group just to focus on what your need requirements are to, do your job safely and as the community expects of all you. But I wouldn't encourage you to get into the actual band. That is an engineering aspect that the engineers, with all of their education as an engineer, really need to determine. The second topic I'd like to briefly discuss is owning or joining WACA or the CRESA system. Recently, there was an article in the Chronicle newspaper that said that a bond can only pay for the initial build of the system. A levy would have to be used to fund ongoing recurring expenses on an annual basis. If we were to partner with Press or WAC or any other service that charged us a per radio subscriber fee to the tune of $300-400 a year per radio, that is inherently going to raise the amount of a levy that would need to be approved by the voters. The problem with that is compression. Bonds do not cause compression, but levies do. Parts of Rainier, parts of Clastonite, Vernonia are already in compression. If anybody doesn't know what compression is, I highly recommend that you look it up, because for those of you that have local option levies, it can push your rate down if another levy gets passed. If we don't own our own system, it will inherently eliminate the ability, or the ability for schools and other providers to be on this radio system, because they're not going to be able to afford a $400 per year.
Mr.
radio.
Miller, we are at 3 minutes, sir. Thank you.
I'll email the rest of my comments for everybody. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Hearing none. Are there any additions to the agenda that need to be made?
No, sir.
Okay. Official appointment, legal services, general counsel appointment.
Yes, sir. So, during our special meeting of September 29th, we met in executive session, the board of directors did, with legal counsel, and kind of went to the background, the steps of where we are today. And the 911 district has multiple attorneys and law firms that specialize in certain aspects of our business. Obviously, we have a labor firm that does all personnel and hiring practices and administrative for discipline and such. We also have a general counsel firm that takes care of all of our business, governmental business, contracting, purchasing, construction, all sorts of non-personnel HR type legal advice. Recently, over the last couple of months, our general counsel firm declared a conflict of interest, and that has hampered the district's ability to do some business because they represent another entity that we deal with. So district staff contacted our labor firm, which is a very large firm, and we asked for a recommendation for a new general counsel. They recommended Mr. Michael Peterkin, and I'm going to introduce him in just a moment. He's meeting us virtually from his office in Bend. In your packet is a bio and a photo of Mr. Peterkin. I have met with him many times over the last couple of months in preparation for what Columbia County 911 is, what Columbia County is, our business, our model, our users, and some of the challenges that we have that we're ramping up to engage his services. Specifically, we have construction going on for a radio site. We're on the cusp of this district moving forward on a new radio solution, and he will play part and parcel in all of that. So at this point, I'd like to introduce Michael Peterkin. Michael, can you hear us?
Yes,
you
good
go.
morning. I can't see you, but I can hear you. Have you let me into the video yet?
You are up on the big screen. Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Well, good morning to the advisory committee. Good morning to Mr. Holsley, President, Mr. Flatt, Mr. Heimuller, Ms. Hennessy, and Mr. Anderson. The other members in attendance of the advisory committee, I didn't catch all your names, but good morning. Yes, I have met personally with Mr. Fletcher. I've talked to the attorneys at Bullard, and I'm becoming familiar with the issues that confront Columbia 911 district. And so you have my resume. I have been doing this work for 40 years, learned a few things on those along the way. I have, as my bio says, I have cases in the United States Supreme Court, just one case, but multiple cases in the United States, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and of course, many, many cases in the Oregon appellate courts, and I've handled cases, most jurisdictions in Oregon. There's a couple that I haven't had a case in, but not many. I can say, for example, I've had a jury trial in Lake County, and had jury trials in Union County and Wallowa County, just to give you an idea. I've been all over Oregon, and I've had cases in other states as well. So I'm here to help the district to the best that I can. And I believe in a cooperative approach. I also have deep litigation experience and conflict resolution experience. So that's my introduction. In fact, I'm going to trial tomorrow on a somewhat complex case. So with that, I will entertain any questions.
Hearing none, sir?
Okay. Do I hear a motion to replace Barry Elsner and Hammond LLP with Peterkin Burgess, specifically Michael, is it Peterkin?
Correct.
Through the personal service contract for general counsel.
So moved. I'm going to try to go through all those names again. So
I don't want to read them again. So we have a motion. Is there a second? We have a second by Jeff. Any discussion?
I think we talked a little bit about whether it was going to hamper us in any way having our firm housed in Bend, but I think that question was answered sufficiently with all of our electronic means and all of that. And of course, it sounded like from our original discussion that Mr. Peterkin wouldn't be hesitant to come here whenever it was needed. So,
And not speaking for Michael, but he did voice he would have preferred to be here in person, but he does have a trial starting tomorrow, so it's kind of inconvenient. So
Makes sense. Well, call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes.
thank you very much. Congratulations, Mr. Peterkin.
I'll look forward to working with all of you, and I intend to arrange a time to come over and meet with you in the near future.
Very
you.
good. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Moving along, approval of meeting minutes. I will accept a motion for approval of the meeting minutes of September 22, 2022, and the special board meeting of September 29th, 22.
So moved.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Henry. Any discussion? Calling for the vote. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
For the advisory committee, I will accept a motion for approval of the meeting minutes of September 22nd, 2022, and the special, wrong one. Meeting minutes of January 25th, 2022, and the meeting transcription of June 14th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion with one exception. I believe, I don't have a copy in front of me, but my name was misspelled on one of those.
I'll get that fixed.
We have corrected.
With that correction, do I have a second?
I will second.
Been moved and seconded to adopt or approve the minutes of January 25th and the meeting transcription of June 14th, 2022 with the correction of Chief Kaczynski's name and as presented. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask for all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Excuse me. Financial reports. Acceptance of the budget variance.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the budget variance report as presented.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion passes. Approval of expenditures.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the check register from check number 31010 through 31039, or I'm sorry, 31055, including all those electronic payments that we send off to the state, for a total of $583,522.57 as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Jeff. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion passes. PERS actuary. Is that you?
We'll let Nancy take that.
The PERS actual report that's in your board packets is going to be the rates that become effective July 1st, 2023. They are down slightly from what the advisory was last year, so that's good news.
Right.
That doesn't happen very often.
Exactly.
And I need no action on that.
Operations managers report. Danelle.
Yes, so our hiring update, we have our third and final applicant from our last hiring pool that's going to start November 28th. And we are always open for hiring laterals. We have a lateral that we've given a contingent job offer to for pending his background and final steps. And we have 2 in training. One is finishing up her radio training, and Delina Quinn just finished up her in-house academy. Staff are going to be participating in the upcoming Halloween trunk or treat event at the fairgrounds. They've done a lot to work together and they're pretty excited. And then we're right in the middle of fall training for staff. We had our first session yesterday and our next session will be next week. It's going well.
Good. Is there any questions from Danelle from the board?
Board or advisory, any questions for operations? Thank you.
Okay. Technical managers report. Nathan.
We did more security and operating system patches to CAD. Very short downtime of a couple minutes, then just a couple more minutes to come back up. A company called Pano AI reached out to us. They work with Washington County and Clackamas County to detect fires in the area using AI cameras on towers. They are working with PG right now to give tower operators cameras for free. So hopefully PG will come back and decide to use our tower so we can start using AI to find forest fires and things like that. And then we are getting ready to interview technology and facility specialists this 27th. We have 3 applicants that are very qualified.
Thank you. Is there any questions from the advisory committee or the board for Nathan for technical manager?
I had one, Mr. Chair, on that the fire cameras, which sounds like a great idea, who's gonna monitor those? Where do the feeds go?
So the way it works is the cameras will detect the fire, then it goes to a clearinghouse where an operator will make sure that it's a real fire, not like somebody's chimney smoke or something like that. And then once it's decided that it's probably a fire, it'll be sent via text message, email, and then we'll have a control panel that we can monitor live feeds and watch the fire. It does everything with multiple cameras. You can triangulate within 100 to 200 feet of where it actually is. Clackamas sent me a couple demos of their system online, and it was insane how fast it detected some of those fires.
But it wouldn't be, our dispatchers wouldn't be subject to having to be watching and monitoring the cameras.
No, so that's a piece that we'll have to figure out. I don't want to jump the gun if we don't get them, if PG decides not to use our tower. But once they do decide, working with Danelle and figuring out the operations flow, working with the local fire agencies to see how they want the operations flow to go.
And, okay, that sounds interesting.
Anything else from anybody? Old business, Mr. Fletcher.
Old business, we're wrapping up our winter preparations. Refueling is complete at all of our site generators, and we're finishing up the preventative maintenance for those, the generators themselves. Almost done with that. Going down our list, there's nothing to report on Klatskanai. Nothing to report on Corey.
Hey, Mike. So, I don't remember, was it last year or was it in April? Wasn't there a problem gaining access to a site?
So, yes, there was a year ago we had a problem at the Klatskanai site. We didn't know that the site went down, but we didn't know at the time what it was, and there was a distinct challenge to get up there because it was during, of course, an active snow event. So deep snow, took cats to get up there. It turned out to be a battery on the generator itself, and so when the vendor who does our PMs on generators did that site, which is about this time of year every year. So we do it in the fall and we do them again in the spring. The amps on that battery checked okay, but like all things, it's cold and they drain, and so when it needed it, it didn't have enough amps to kick the generator over, so it failed. So it was a combination work between Power Systems West, who is our vendor for the PMs on generators, and Day Wireless to make that correction up there. So there's a focus this year of when Power Systems West does their PMs, I'm asking them to not only check, they automatically check the amps on the batteries, but I want to also know the dates of those batteries. How old are they? And if they're over 4 years old, chuck them and we're starting over. So.
Well, specifically on the access, what road is that?
It is a combination of Weyerhaeuser and Evenson Logging. It's a very, I can't remember how many miles, 7 miles. It's a long ways up there.
Okay.
So.
Well, I mean, I'm just gonna throw this out there. If we can, Columbia County Road Department could help with that in the future. If that becomes an issue again, just give me a call. And if we can, we can help with that.
We'll put you on our call list. Yeah.
Because I know that was an issue.
It was.
Mike, do those generators cycle themselves every week?
They do, yeah.
And so let's just start it. Do we have a way of knowing whether it started the week before?
We know that they could see that the generator tried. It failed over to it, but there just wasn't enough juice to kick it over.
But if there's not a, if there's, say it's a Monday morning test or something like that, if it doesn't start that week, are we notified electronically in any way that it didn't work?
We don't have a monitoring system for the generators.
No.
Okay.
Not to get too much in the weeds, but because I heard you throw a date out, just through a lot of stuff, experience with our fleet, if we're sticking with conventional lead acid batteries, I would recommend maybe every 2 years, because these are critical devices. And I know after 2 years, even though something tests fine, you know, you could go back a month or two later and you hit the drop off. If we're looking at going to away from sealed lead acid to something else, then I think that time period could be extended out. But because we have issues of accessibility with weather and everything else, I think maybe being a little more proactive.
I've made a note of that. Bald Hill update. At the last meeting, we approved that purchase of the equipment. There was a request to change the language of that quote. In your packet was the updated language. I already signed off on it because it did remove the sales tax line item, although there was no number there. We just removed that entire line item, as well as it was a much more robust description of what we're actually doing. So that is in play.
We have an ETA.
Don't have the ETA on shipping. It's kind of an unknown at this point, like everything else. What we did also learn about Bald Hill, so I believe I shared with you last time that the site owner, which is the Army Corps of Engineers, when we were working on this, trying to solve this, or come up with a solution for that hill and the microwave shot, Army Corps of Engineers was very accommodating, very helpful. They still are. But they had made a comment that they may be interested in turning over the ownership of that site to Columbia 911. We started that process since we last talked, but just this last week, some regional colonel of the Army Corps made a decision that they still want to keep it at this point. So we just changed our conversation from acquisition to improvement of that site to our benefit. And that means that we will, we're going to be seeking to build a true tower there. We're sitting on a short tower, 60 feet tall, and we want to increase the height. So, which they are completely open, but we need to get in more details and give them, engage with Cushing Engineers to do a site design and construction plan. So I'll keep you posted as we move along on that. Meisner site, in your packet is a contract. So to take you a little backwards, story time, we did already do an ITB, which is an invitation to bid. We concluded that process. As a reminder, there were 3 qualified bidders. Summit Solutions, their quote was $467,160. T3 Construction was $804,500. And Day Wireless Civil Systems was $454,357.11. I want to know what the 11 cents is. But so we posted the notice to award to Day Wireless. Our legal counsel and Day Wireless has worked on developing the contract that is in your packet. And so today I'm seeking board approval for me to sign off on that. And again, it's for civil construction at the Meisner site for $454,357.11.
Motion on that. What are you looking for?
So moved.
We have a motion by Rob. Is there a second?
I'll second, I'm sorry.
We have a second by Henry. Discussion?
I see currently the estimated completion date is April 12th. Is that, how weather dependent is that? date?
Well, it's dependent always on weather. I will tell you that we are ready. We have the tower in custody. We have the shelter. We have the generator. One of our challenges has been, if anybody has generators that you're building or placing and you need propane tanks, they're very difficult to come by. We've been waiting 9 months for a 1,000-gallon tank, and there's no ETA when we're going to get it. So we are scrambling. We're looking for an existing tank that we can move. Day Wireless is assisting us with that effort. That is one of the hangups that we are a little concerned about, but everything else is ready to go. As soon as we sign this contract, they're ready to start turning dirt. The Day Wireless Civil does have 2 other sites that they're building, and they are racing the snow. They had a setback, obviously, this last week because both the sites that they're working on are buried right now. So they could be jumping right onto our project because we're not in the snow at Meisner. So, but it's always a risk.
Is the 1,000 gallons a standard tank size for something like that? That seems pretty big.
Well, we have Clatskanie, we have 2 1,000 tanks.
Wow.
Most of our sites have 500s or we're diesel. And eventually, with the radio project, we want to convert all those to propane. It's just much cleaner, easier. We don't have to do abatements when we move stuff, so we just want to go with propane. So that's in my forward thinking for all of our sites to transition to propane, and they would all be 1,000s.
Okay, and I did have one question. Under liquidated damages in that contract paperwork, there's no sum in there. Is
Yep.
that been discussed yet?
That was a conversation between both councils, Day Wireless and ourselves, and everybody agreed that they don't have a number because they're not too sure of what that would be based on, because this site is existing, what's the damages would be if they're running late. That's kind of a very foggy thing because we have a guesstimated end date, but it's flexible.
So is that site going to remain in service, or?
There's a plan to keep it online, and then as we build up the tower, put the shelter in place, move equipment into it, they will transition, turn up the new site, and then decom the existing old stuff up there.
Okay, so there should be no actual
Downtime.
need for damages based on downtime if everything's sitting there ready to go. And
That is correct.
okay, thank you.
Hot transition.
Any other discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. Haven Acres, there's nothing new on that. I'm still negotiating with a current owner of a heavy-duty 150-foot monopole. Why is that specific to that site? Because the actual site, that little knob just north of Clatskanie, is a very small footprint. There's 2 other sites up there, a commercial wireless provider, and then somebody else. I have no idea what that thing is over there to the east of us. But our footprint is very small, and so in order to keep it as small as possible, rather than a 3 or 4 leg self-supporting lattice tower, a monopole is not my favorite thing in the world to use, but it has its place, and that is a good place for it. If that doesn't seem to work for Haven Acres, it's also in consideration for Bald Hill, because again, not a real big physical site, and a monopole could work well there. So that's what's going on with Haven Acres. The microwave repair replacement follow-up, we approved the board approved that purchase a couple months ago, actually several months ago. We have started to receive those certain components of that purchase. So what we've received as of last week was 2 out of the 6 6-foot microwave antennas, 4 out of the 5 loaded radio racks, and 1 of the 48-volt UPS systems, and a host of associated components for mounting on towers, all that equipment. So we're starting to receive, we received 1 truckload of all of this stuff. I don't have an exact ship date for the second truckload, but it's going to be soon. M&I will be on site this week, and they're conducting with their engineers final walkthroughs for past surveys and making sure everything's up to speed. Had kind of a challenge with all this stuff arriving because it takes up a lot of space, and so we've divvied up some of those radio racks. We've moved them to some of our mountaintop sites that have shelters with space in them, so they're staged there. We have 2 of the racks here in this building staged. We want to keep them warm and dry, obviously, so they're at least in safe places that are secure and warm. Moving on that. Tower Acquisition Advisory Committee and the board authorized the receipt of those towers that were offered. We have received 3 out of the 4, and thanks to Columbia County Public Works Roads Department, who are the custodians of our equipment, they're holding it temporarily. The 4th tower, as I mentioned, is destined for the Meisner site. It's in custody of Day Wireless. They're holding it, and they'll transport it up to that site when it's ready to go. So we really have all 4 of the towers, and then that 5th one, as I just spoke about, that monopole is still in negotiations. The advisory committee and the board authorized me to engage with Motorola directly in regards to that radio equipment that's being offered by the C800 group. C800 is the owners and operators of the 800 megahertz system in Clackamas County. The C800 group, the board, is made up of police chiefs and fire chiefs. And as I've shared with both of your groups, is Clackamas County, the C800 group, went out for a bond about 4 years ago. It's around $60 million to upgrade their portion of the radio system. And they've spent the last 3 years building it. But full disclosure, they had some project management dysfunction, and they are upside down somewhere in the $8 million range. And as you guys know, in government, you just don't have a credit card or special bank accounts that you can just create money. Bake sales aren't really effective. So they made the difficult decision to not build out some of their radio sites. And they see these assets that they already purchased and have in custody as an asset that they could sell. They know that this 911 district is contemplating a new site or a new system, and so they made the offer to us to purchase these sites. As a reminder, what their offer is on the table is they contracted with Motorola to purchase this equipment in 2017. They didn't receive them until sometimes late 18, early 19, but their contract was signed on 17, and that's the price that they were locked into. So they're willing to sell them to us starting at that 2017 price, then a 40% discount. So dealing with police chiefs and fire chief, they have this itemized list, but it doesn't mean anything to them because it's all geekanese. So I met with Motorola, who knows exactly what this stuff is, to seek their input of what this stuff is. How could this district utilize that to our best advantage? And the Motorola meeting was with 2 engineers and their regional sales rep. They started the conversation with wanting to make sure we understand that these sites, these 2 and potentially 3 sites, were spec'd for the Clackamas County system, meaning they are a large system, large volume, large user base that are hitting these towers. So they're spec'd to be built to maintain that load. So the essence is the reality for Columbia 911 is these things are overbuilt for you. Is that good or bad? Well, that's good for you because in their itemized list, they said these 3 sites can each be broken down and become 2 sites for us. So 3 sites that are for sale turns into 6 sites that we could utilize. That's pretty good. So the next question is, how many sites, based on your estimation, Motorola, how many 800 sites do we need? 7. So this is at 2017 prices, 40% discount. That's what's on the table. 6 sites. And in their estimation, we need 7. Okay. So working on the assumption of a hybrid system, because the reality is both this board and the advisory committee have not come to a consensus on one technology versus the other. And so the suggestion is, and it's not written in stone, give your users what they want, which is a hybrid system. So I've asked Motorola to give me 3 things. I want a design so everybody can see what their concept is. I want my first quote to be based on the design that you think best fits for Columbia 911. I want an itemized list of what that's going to cost. Brand new 2022, 2023 pricing. This is what it's going to cost to build it out. Not talking about that equipment from C800, just off the shelf DAS pricing. I want a second quote that same design that includes this discounted priced equipment. Those, you would build out 6 sites. We need a 7th site. We need 2 VHF sites. Okay, give me a price quote for that this district owns and operates. And that will be the second most expensive quote that we're going to get from them. And then a third quote I asked for, which is, again, taking into account this discounted priced equipment, 6 sites, 2 VHF sites, but we don't host the system here. We partner with WCN and let them host our brains of our system. That should be the least expensive quote that we're going to see. Following that, I had a meeting with Washington County, again, because WACA is the system operator for the C800 system. So they don't own the sites, they don't own the radios in Clackamas County, but they manage the system. They manage the core, they do all the PMs on the portables, the mobiles, the sites. They have a different agreement than Newburgh. Newburgh is on that site or on that system, and they manage those sites and they manage those subscriber radios. And so they understand what the C800 equipment is. I asked Washington County, WACA, to give us a quote to have us join the WCN system with some caveats. A full-blown support system that WACA can provide a user agency such as Clackamas, C800, Newburgh, Lake Oswego. These are all entities that belong to the WCN system. And what are those advantages? They have radio purchasing power. They are a big user, and so they get significant discounts off of all of their equipment from Motorola. They do all radio programming and template management. They do annual preventative maintenance for all portables and mobiles of all the various public safety user agencies, including spares and replacement parts. They do preventative maintenance and repairs on all mountaintop radio sites. They do preventative maintenance on all radio site shelters. That includes all the HVAC, everything having to do with the shelters. They do preventative maintenance for all radio site properties. That means the security, groundskeeping, weed whacking, all that stuff, fencing, all that stuff. They do that. They do preventative maintenance for the radio site generators. They do all the refueling for radio site generators. And then they also do all the preventative maintenance and repairs for the 911 center's radio consoles. And so our dispatch center has radio consoles. They look like big computers, that's what they are. But they do all the PMs for the radio consoles currently for Clackamas County 911, Lake Oswego 911, Newburgh 911, Washington County 911, and they could do that for us as well. But what I asked for was a down and dirty hosting of our system if we were so to choose. That would include a 4-time redundant core. They have 2 cores. They have one at Washington County, and one in Clackamas County. They're geo-redundant. They're complete mirrors of each other. Each core has 2 cores, basically. They're mirrors inside internally. They have 2 of those, so they have 4 times redundant. So we would like to be hosted if we could. What is that going to cost us? We want purchasing power. We want preventative maintenance on all of our radio sites, the actual radios, not the sites, just the equipment inside the shelters. All of the subscriber radios, all the police, fire, EMS, portables, mobiles, they do the maintenance on those. They do the replacement parts. Somebody would be physically touching all your radios at least once a year. And I asked for support for the radio consoles in the dispatch center. We would take care of our sites. We would take care of the weed whacking, the generators, the fueling of those, and the HVAC systems. We do that today. There's no reason for us to have somebody else do it. We'll take care of that. I just want the technology to be taken care of. So I'm waiting for that quote as well. I checked with Motorola on my previous request for those 3 quotes. It's still in process in the design. They want to come in and meet with you to help educate, answer questions, but that's where we are today. So, any questions so far? Okay.
So, yeah, the direction you got from the advisory committee was to confirm the pricing on that for equipment. Sounds like you did that, and what we had talked about is confirmed.
Yes.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Is there, we're focusing solely on Motorola?
So that equipment that C800 is offering us is all Motorola equipment. So if if you all choose to, we could purchase that. It kind of locks you in though.
Motorola.
So yeah, it does. So there's two questions there there's two answers to your question. So for the sites, it kind of locks you in. If we're talking about subscriber radios in your vehicles, not necessarily. That stuff is P25, which means it opens up the ability to have other subscriber radios. So, and there are multiple vendors who sell P25 compliant radios. So Motorola, Tate, Harris, EF Johnson, Kenwood. There's lots of people out there that sell lower priced subscriber radios. So that's a possibility, or at least an option. But the real bigger question is, if we host it, we live it, have the brains here, there are advantages and disadvantages to that. To join, for us to own and operate, we would have to purchase a core. That's about $2 million. If we want what's called an ISSI link, that means that your subscriber radios can roam between here and into Portland. You'd be utilizing Portland radio system. If you transport over to Washington County, that's a different radio system. You would want the ability to roam, like your cell phones, transparently. You don't have to change knobs, your radio just knows. Those links are about $2 million each. We would need 3, because you want to talk to Portland, you want to talk to Washington County, and for several of you, need to talk to Clark County because we share a river and we interact with them. So 3 of those puppies. If you join, oh, okay. Oh, I see it. Thank you. If you join the WCN system, if you joined Cresa system, if you joined Portland, those ISI links already exist. Those cores already exist. And so those are cost savings that you wouldn't have to purchase here.
Follow up?
Yes, sir.
So basically, going with this Motorola, it ties in the Motorola for the equipment that we have. But I guess the offshoot is that we're getting 2017 prices plus at a 40% discount.
That's correct.
So what you were able to achieve is exactly what I know that on the advisory board we're looking for, is keeping the cost down. But keeping the cost down means we have to commit and really almost back ourselves into a corner. So I think that, I'm
Yep.
asking to see if I'm thinking the right way. So I think that if we want more options and not focus only on Motorola, it's gonna cost us a lot more money.
Maybe. You know, part of our thinking about this equipment is how do you acquire it? So it's no secret we contracted with Federal Engineering. There's still a regular phone call with me to check on our status, where we are, what are we doing, and I'm running all of this by them. And they're willing to jump in and assist us on acquisition. They're guiding us, talking about the right vehicle, if this is the right solution, engaging legal counsel on how do we do this properly. So there's a lot of wheels turning, and we're still gathering information. Yes, you make a commit. If this C800 equipment is the direction you wanted to go, which it's compelling, just based on dollars and cents, it's pretty compelling. But you do make a commitment to, okay, we're going with a Motorola solution, at least for the sites, the consoles, those type of things. You make a commitment. You have options for subscriber radios. That's true of any system. If Harris came in and wanted to bid on the system, if it's a P25 system, you can use off-brand, I'll use that, It doesn't have to be Harris, it doesn't have to be Motorola, that's a P25, so that's the whole point of it. So it's yes and no.
I think, I'm assuming for you guys, Scappoose, Vernonia, I mean, most of our mutual aid comes from Washington County. And so, and I've said this before, and if I didn't have to fight my chief over it, we would pull out of CCOM today and go to Washington County to be dispatched, because the radio coverage that we receive in our fire district is better today through Washington County than it is through CCOM on some days. And so I think most of us are gonna benefit from that connection and being, whether it's back into that corner of being Motorola, you know, at least at the radio level, being able to host and have those ISSI links between us and Washington County and Portland, and obviously Clackamas is tied to that, and
Salem.
Cressa
Yep.
and Salem, right? Like that gives us a much broader range for that communication, especially for those ambulances that are leaving the county. Should we have a large scale event where we have units coming in from other counties that right now we may not have those communication capabilities with them? I know one of our biggest downsides is when our mutual aid help comes from Washington County, most of the time we can't talk to them on the Columbia County radio network until they get into the county. And so we end up tying up usually off 36 with WACA, so that our mutual aid resources that are coming in have communication from the fire ground immediately. So we're not even waiting to get them into the county. I call Fire Common Dispatch and say, I need an ops channel, we're working a fire in Vernonia. They give us an ops channel and we're running both. For us at least, there's a lot of other issues that creates. We end up monitoring 2 Mayday channels as the incident commander, because I'm monitoring their 800 Mayday, plus ours, plus our ops channel, plus their ops channel, plus their dispatch. So, you know, from at least from Vernonia Fire standpoint, that tie for us is pretty huge. And being able to simplify what we're doing, and then obviously extend what our radio coverage capabilities are now.
No, I mean, I understand what the chief is saying. What I'd like to stress to the board is, and I appreciate every comment and things that have been made, but what I want to stress to the board is, you know, we made one of the comments was made about why do we care about what the wires in the wall? I mean, we have to. You just heard this, right? Because I'll give you an example of how I understand it. If that plug only has 16 gauge wire in the wall, you have to choose what appliance you can plug into it. From a technical point of view, if you have coax in the wall and you don't have Cat 4 or Cat 5, you're then again limited to what you can use in computers. And as Mike said, you know, basically our radio consoles are big computers, so we have to worry about what wires in the wall. We also have to ensure that when we talk to the engineers are engineers, right? But it's the public safety individuals that have to communicate that we're following best practice for public safety. You know, it's not just communications. It isn't like I'm just trying to talk to a tugboat that's sitting in Columbia River. I mean, the officers who, God bless them, I wouldn't want to be sitting in a vehicle all by myself and wondering if I had communication or not. I mean, you know, as a fire department, we run in pairs, or you know, we get a lot of people. Sometimes these gentlemen do not have the luxury of that. So, I mean, absolutely, their communication is key. So I would stress to the board that, yes, you need to look at what wires are in the wall. Yes, you need to look at best practices for public safety. Not just here, but there's a lot of different places that have done studies and done things like that. And we need to consider the needs of the places that are gonna struggle the most, like Vernonia, like Miss Birkenfeld. You know, because as I said before, is that one of the reasons that I don't necessarily, from Columbia River standpoint, run a flag up the pole as to this is what we wanna do. Because let's be realistic, Columbia River Fire District runs the I-30 corridor. No matter what you decide, our radio system is gonna get better. So it would be very unfair for us to try to use our muscle to say, we want this, when I think that our efforts are better served supporting Ms. Birkenfeld, supporting Vernonia, and saying these agencies need these needs. Police needs these needs in these areas. So that's why I just wanted to make that statement to the board to say that I appreciate everything that you guys are doing, and taking a look at all the aspects, and allowing us to have the information to make good decisions from an advisory board point of view. Thank you for that.
I think Chief Pritchard has something
Yes,
online.
thank you.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. A couple of questions. Number one, just want to make sure the towers is separate from this Motorola radio equipment. Is that correct, or are they part of a package deal?
So when are you talking about the physical towers? The steel structures?
Yes. If I remember correctly, the advisory board recommended that towers be purchased. Is that correct?
That is correct, and that has been completed. We've received all the towers.
But that doesn't lock us into anything.
No, that's just a physical structure that antennas and microwaves sit on. No, that's we already have those assets. We can use them or not. If we don't use them, we'll pass them on to another agency that's in need. But it is a separate.
Just wanted to make sure they weren't tied together. Now, with this Motorola equipment, if I understood what you said correctly, you're still waiting for quotes. But you mentioned that they said they could build out a system with 8 towers. What are those tower locations, and how much money is that going to cost to develop those tower sites?
Yep.
Because we can talk all day about Motorola equipment and purchasing equipment, but if we go back to the original reports that were provided by the different vendors before the federal engineering report, Motorola wasn't able to guarantee the coverage that we all wanted, at least back then. So if we do look at Motorola equipment, what kind of guarantee are they going to give us for the coverage that all the public safety agencies require?
Yep, good questions, Chief. So towers are separate. That's just a physical structure that we've already acquired. Has nothing to do with anything radio equipment wise. It's just the physical structure that stuff would hang on. The Motorola equipment and the sites, those are good questions, and that is part of the design that I'm asking from them, I should say. It's a total of 9 sites. That's correct, 9 sites. 7 of them being 800 and 2 being VHF. The 2 VHF sites are tentatively identified as Clatskanie and Corey Hill. The 800 sites are along the 30 corridor, and the advantage that I've been told, I haven't seen anything, so I keep using this caveat. I haven't seen anything yet, and I haven't seen an itemized list and a quote yet. So it's all kind of vaporware right now. So I'm trying to be realistic, but I'm just passing on what I've been told. But the majority of the sites already belong to us. There are 2 sites that I'm aware of that are needing to be developed, but one of them already has an existing shelter, does not have a tower, does have a generator and a fuel source. It does have commercial power. We just need to place a tower at that location. We have a verbal agreement prior to any of this happening from that site owner that we could co-locate at no cost. So that's one. So there would be a cost of a tower and the radio equipment that would go for that site. The other site is near Rainier, and it would be a greenfield site, which means it's from the ground up development. I know that there's commercial power there, but everything else would have to be built. So a tower, shelter, generator, fuel source. So right now, just verbally, I've been told of 1 greenfield site. Everything else is pre-existing. Did I answer that question, Chief?
Yes, sir. The only thing is the coverage.
Yep. Yep. So that's going to be on that design and their coverage maps, which they want to show us, but they're not done yet.
We still going, I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
As a follow-up, are we, by the coverage maps, we're still going for,
95%.
I mean, but not average in the
No.
different districts, right?
So
Because it's easy to get 95%.
if you talk about the whole county,
The whole county.
yes, no. We can break it down into specific zones. So Vernonia, Miss Birkenfeld, Rainier, Clatskanie, absolutely.
Again, just the intent that it is that Columbia River is gonna get 95%. We're on the high, we're on the 30 corridor.
Yep.
My concern is for police and for Miss Birkenfeld and Vernonia.
Correct.
I mean, those are the ones that we really need to be, shoring up and hardening. Thank you.
And Chief Kaczynski, we talk about your fire station and your verbal approval of co-locating there. Fishhawk is a point that I'm making with them. So I'm trying to keep all of you in mind. So, like I said, I'm sorry.
I was just curious,
Rob.
timeline, are we looking at
Yeah.
roughly to get in, if you've requested that information?
Yep.
How long is it until they're gonna be able to turn that around?
So that's right where I was going. So I haven't received anything yet. I checked yesterday with both Washington County for the WCN, and I checked with Motorola because I'm asking Motorola for actually quite a bit. I'm looking for 3 different things and a design with maps, all that stuff. I don't have a estimated, but soon is the constant word I hear. So a month and a half. We're coming up to holiday season, so I'm trying to be realistic about that kind of stuff too. But I'll keep you posted on as we make progress. Chief,
Just to make sure I understand, right? So if we go Motorola and if we were to join WCN with the ISSI links, right, it doesn't matter where physically the user radio is, right? It's going to bounce closest tower back to our system.
so it depends. So you would have the easiest analogy is your cell phone. Your cell phone roams all across the country. Didn't used to be that way, right? 800s are proprietary. Their keys are programmed into your radios, and so you can have access or not, depending on those users that own the system. Those ISSI links are there for all of the WCN system, which is really all of Washington County, all of Clackamas County, northern Yamhill County. They have a link with Salem, so you can literally roam from here really to Chehalis, because they have Clark County system as well. As far as their talk groups, that's a different conversation with templates and approvals of those system users. So, but all of that is possible.
I guess my point is, right, with that link, at least for our fire district, and go back to Chief Medina and looking at the smaller agencies, right, our coverage now from WACA is phenomenal.
Yeah.
So the addition of 7 sites in Columbia County, the coverage in your district is not terrible at this point from WACA, depending on where you're at, once you get out to a certain point. So as we start to add sites, if we're able to bounce from some of those WACA sites, our coverage should be pretty phenomenal.
So Mike,
So I just need a clarification. You're talking, ISSI suggests 800 system, right?
it is.
Right, so you're saying maybe we don't need to do a hybrid system for Vernonia?
I don't think no, absolutely not.
Okay.
I don't think we need a hybrid in Vernonia, period.
Okay.
And it's,
So I guess I need some clarification from the advisory committee. I'm not clear who wants VHF and who wants 800 or either or doesn't care. It's hard, we're talking about a hybrid system that's gonna add cost, but I was thinking Vernonia was one of the areas that was in favor of VHF, so now I'm hearing that's not the case. So I guess for those of you who are in favor of VHF, I'd like to hear from you. and understand what the pros are for you for VHF.
Well, if I may,
Yeah.
what we were talking is that I'm pretty clear that I think that the reason we were going 800, and Chief Kaczynski could comment on that, is that we were looking to remain having the ability to communicate with ODF and some of the state agencies who are gonna stay with VHF, and they're not changing.
Yes, good. Thank you for reminding me of that. That's right. But I think that capability is available if we go to an 800 system. We can patch the ODF channel in. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So my focus is our core business. Our core business at this place is police, fire, and medical. And that's really what I'm focusing on. I'm being cognizant that every ambulance in this county leaves when they transport. The overwhelming majority go either to Washington County or to Multnomah County. There are some that go to Columbia, Astoria.
Classic.
And some go to St. John's in Longview. I keep that in mind, but really, we're at 72% leaving, going south or east. So those ISSI links are going to be really important for those guys. VHF, I never forget this. I've said this before. Columbia County is really unique in their relationship with ODF. I've done this 4 other places in my career, and this is the most unique, most integrated relationship with ODF and the fire districts, Fire Defense Board, and the 911 Center that I've ever experienced in 40 years. So I'm really protective of this, but to your point, correct, we could do all 800, and the radios that I'm asking for subscribers is at minimum dual band, so 800 and VHF. I will tell you that Motorola has a radio that actually does, you can do tri-band, high, low, VHF, 800, blah, 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 but they also have a radio that does Wi-Fi. So you have an air card in it, and you be in a building, it'll automatically seamlessly roll into Wi-Fi, and you're using this facility's signal to get out into your system. It's pretty whiz-bang. It's not inexpensive. But to that point, my request of Motorola for those 3 quotes is to include those subscriber radios. Top of the line, fire rated, noise canceling, and everybody in fire service knows what you can literally stand next to an engine company with the pumps running full speed, and you are crystal clear. You can't even hear the pump running behind you. And these Wi-Fi enabled radios, so pretty whiz bang. Chief Pritchard.
Chief Lugal.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Been waiting.
Steve. You've been waiting.
Is Motorola just doing recommendations, or are they doing an engineering study?
A true engineering study.
Okay, with that said, we all know that there's another engineering study being conducted.
Correct.
Will that information also be looked at, or,
So,
we're all looking, at the end of the day, we want the best radio system.
amen, amen. So,
And I'm not trying to push anything.
No.
I mean, that information's coming out.
yep,
Regardless.
I want to see it, and I want to just be really clear for everybody in this room. This district purposely is not getting involved because of the problems with publicly purchasing things. So we have not engaged at all. Legal counsel maintains, do not get involved. The board members should not get involved. But when that study is presented, absolutely I want to see it, because it's information, it's education.
Okay.
Yep.
No, I appreciate that. I'm just
Yep.
asking because, everybody's gotten emails through.
Yeah,
It's gonna be
absolutely.
a presentation. So I just want to make sure that at least that information is available and we look at it.
Absolutely.
So that we do what's best for all of us.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Chief Pritchard?
Yes, sir. I think there was a question asked about who still wants VHF, and I don't think at this time our agency can answer that question because we don't have all the information yet. If we're going to be looking at some new quotes for Motorola, we need to see what those quotes look like, especially if there's going to be bonds issued. Because when it comes down to it, a lot of the decision making that's going to be made is based on cost. So with that statement, you made a couple of statements about radios, and the backbone system is technically agnostic of a model of radio. So would it also be prudent to look at other models of subscriber radios which also meet the same conditions that you described as the top-of-the-line Motorola when we're looking at trying to provide the best product for the public safety users at the best price for the taxpayers?
So absolutely, and you're correct. If it's a P25 system, while the site radios, the stuff that are mountaintops, if we choose to leverage that offer from C800, it really locks us in from the core, the site radios, but not subscriber radios. Your portables and your mobiles, it's agnostic. So absolutely. The other point you made there was, VHF. Yeah, so money is king, absolutely. That's what really drives a lot of this conversation. We could want the very best Cadillac system, but we just can't afford it. So money's king, that's what we're looking at. That's why we're focusing on our core business from the 911 perspective. And I'm waiting for those numbers because you're right. The theory has always been that VHF would be less expensive than 800. Maybe not, because you need more sites on VHF, and more sites means more money. So potentially more greenfield sites, which just as a budgetary number for a build out of a green site is about $1 million per. So we're very cognizant of that. So we would prefer to leverage the sites that we already own and operate from and just refresh equipment, waveguide, antennas, etc. But everything's on the table. We're just trying to drill it down. Rob Anderson.
Yeah, I was going to say, on part of Motorola's information they're going to provide, because again, this is just us getting more information from various vendors. We aren't committing to anything yet.
Correct.
We talked about P25 backwards compatibility. We're saying radio agnostic. Could you at least ask Motorola and what they're presenting to list what P25 parts, radio features are compatible and that would work across different manufacturers versus what are the quote whiz-bang features that would only be available if the end subscriber equipment was also Motorola. So I think when there's later discussion down the road, that might be an important part of this decision-making process.
Well, I think we also have to really look at the end user radio and what its capabilities are, at least from the fire standpoint, right? Does it stop at channel 16, or does the dial always spin? Is it fire rated? Are the mics rated to be in live fire?
Yeah.
Right, and some of those manufacturers that are out there, their radios are not capable of that. I can tell you that for my crews, I will not put a radio in service that doesn't stop at channel 16. It has to stop at the end of the Mayday channel. It has to stop at dispatch to be able to get back to them. It has to have a mic that's rated for fire. I mean, we're replacing stuff right now because our stuff is falling apart, and we're only buying what we can afford that is rated to what we need it to be. And there's a lot of stuff that's on the market, BK, Kenwood, and all those things that don't have those features. And while, yes, I'm a Motorola fan, yes, I know it's very expensive, but some of those things could be life-changing for the fire service here. If I can't find the right channel, I end up on something that nobody is monitoring because I can't figure out when I'm pinned underneath something how to get it to a stop.
But I've made note of your ask. I'm adding to it.
Greg's got his
We'd rather have that up front than
Yeah.
you have all this information, then we have a meeting, and if we like it, then we end up going back to them, asking this exact same question.
Good, Greg.
Does having our Motorola core and primary system, that is what Washington County and Clackamas County are currently using, correct?
Correct.
I sometimes have problems in my mind separating CAD from the radio system. Would having any other system hinder the possibility of us being able to seamlessly transfer our dispatch services to another center should we have a threat like happened a couple days ago in Scappoose? I mean, if we had to evacuate this center, I know our backup dispatch facility is hardly existent. And having that ability, if we had to evacuate this building for whatever, to have our dispatch services transferred, is it a benefit to be having Motorola that doesn't make a difference?
So there's a lot of stuff in that question. So you're right. CAD and radio are certainly separate systems, and I know a lot of concern is the concept of joining WCN and utilizing or referencing our relationship with the same groups for CAD and lack of control. They're apples and oranges. They really are so completely different. And I'm going to just talk on that for just a point because I know it's on everybody's mind. The radio system, the WCN system, is a very large radio network, but everybody lives in their own environment. So Clackamas County, C800, lives in that environment, both CAD-wise and radio. And they absolutely, the C800 group owns all the subscriber radios. They own all their sites. They own all of the radio equipment at those sites. That's owned by C800. WACA supports it. They do all the tech stuff, maintenance. Newburgh, exact same thing. Newburgh lives in its own environment. They have their own CAD system. It happens to be the exact same CAD system we all have, but they live in their own environment there, and their radio system lives in its own environment. There is one very unique thing about the WCN system and one agency, and that's TVFNR. Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue is the largest fire district in the state, and they actually operate in both Clackamas, Yamhill County, and Washington County. So they have free roaming everywhere. It's seamless. Washington County lives in its own environment. Columbia County, if we chose to join WCN, would live in our own environment. Our sites, we own them. Our radios, we own them. We're just paying basically WACA, and really it's the whole group. It's the economy, it's the Costco model. The more members you have, the lower the costs are. And that's really what that contract is sitting there for. It's an open contract to allow entities to join. So,
at some point, if we wanted to pull out of that, right, we could purchase whatever that additional core and whatever
Yep,
else we needed.
absolutely.
And pull all of it back in-house and own it.
you could. Chief.
Okay, so I'm not going to be as eloquent as some of the other chiefs in this room. The can has been not only kicked down the road, it's been crushed, ran over, it's broken down, it's rusted, it's gone. So, and I appreciate all the comments of the chiefs and the officers that are in the room. We need a meeting, and this is only I would advise our advisory board to advise the 911 board is, when are we going to see movement? And I'm asking only because obviously there's another study that's coming out on the 29th or so of the month. We'll have a look at that. But at some point, we need to, it's time. We're buying radios, or we're getting radios. Some people are giving us radios because our radios are failing. Yep. And whether it's 800 or VHF, personally, and I'm the realist probably in the room, there's no freaking way we're going to get 95% coverage everywhere. I'm sorry, there's not. I don't give for Vernonia, or up Scatburn or out in Deer Island someplace, there are gonna be spots, we have hills, this is Columbia County, we're not flat like Clackamas or even parts of Hillsborough where they have these great, that radios can see forever. We need something that's gonna work that's better than our system now. And again, the cam's gone. At some point, we need to make it, have the information, present it all. We all give our advice to you guys to decide, but it's at the end. Our system is old, it's antiquated, our radios are failing, officers' radios are failing, and we just keep, again, kicking it down the road. So I think I would advise our advisory to advise you guys that at some point, pick a date, have a big meeting, let's look at all this stuff, and give you guys what we feel, meaning all public service, the direction we think we should go.
I would agree with Chief's point. In fact, when we were talking about the other study that was coming up, my fear is that we would wait for the other study and not make a decision. So I was like, if you're gonna, if the board remembers one of the things that I said, if somebody wants to do a study, great, do the study. But for the love of God, please don't wait. And it just seems like we're saying wait, or until we say wait again. And I agree. I think that I would ask the board to set a date and let's make a decision. And if the consequences aren't tenable to what we're looking for, then we make another decision. But at some point in time, if we're going to do a levy or a bond, when is that even going to happen? I mean, we're not going to get it right now on the ballot for 2023. So now we're looking 2024 before we can get the money. And last time I checked, there aren't very many vendors that are going to give us anything without us having the money to do it. So I think that we need to kind of I don't know if I'm putting the cart before the horse. It doesn't feel like it, because we've had so much information already. Let's just pick a direction and head there. I think that most of the advisory would say, let's do something.
I think it's a great idea.
I'll do Rob first, and then I see Jeff Pritchard is also.
Well, that kind of goes back to when I asked, when are we going to get this information from Motorola?
Yep.
And the question is, if they say, okay, we know something's coming out in November, if they're going to have a month turnaround, is it acceptable to everyone to say in January, we're going to pound this out? Or is that kicking that can, again, too far down the road?
If you're asking my personal opinion, Rob, I'd say January would be fine, give time for that other report to come in, but we pick a date, throw some food on the table, and we don't leave here until we have some decision of which way we're going to go. Because again, I don't want to be, we'll talk about it in July. I will talk about it next fall in 23, and then next thing you know, we're all retired, and there's a new group of viewers sitting here at these tables. This stuff out.
As an end user, I understand needing to move forward. On the other hand, also to be responsible to the taxpayers, I think we do need to look at stuff that's coming down the road. And I think January, just myself, would be a good, reasonable time to say, this is where we need to choose a direction.
January is the absolute latest.
Correct.
Again, I would stress to the board that should be mandated, because what I don't want, I don't want to say I speak for the other fire districts, and I definitely not for PD, but I would say that we can't be in a situation where we say, okay, January is a date, and then December 31st somebody comes in and goes, wait, we have another study behind door number 3, and now it's like, oh, let's wait till February. No, I think it's been long enough. I think we need to go January, mandate it that on January meeting, we are gonna make a decision. And come hell or high water, we're all gonna make a decision.
2023, make sure once you're not 2023.
All right, 2023, right, 2023, because we need time for the levies and for whatever bonds. And if we don't do it by January, we're gonna miss every deadline possible.
Is there a reason that we couldn't do it in December? If these reports are coming out in November, if we're roughly a month from Motorola, we're the 29th or whatever for the other one.
Ideally, that would be great, but we have to be realistic about the holidays. That's just the way that it is. There's gonna be some delays, but I think that if we get the information in November, and then we say we're gonna take December to look at it and evaluate what our positions are as from advisory and for the boards, then we have to make a decision in January. A decision has to be made.
I would
No
just-
more of this kicking the can down the road, let's wait for this, let's wait, no. January, we make a decision, and like Chief Mike says, we all lock ourselves into the room until we can all mostly agree. Because are we all gonna agree? Absolutely not. But we pick January, and then we go.
We're gonna do that. I would suggest that we're gonna have 2 studies out, have both companies here,
Yes.
so that we do walk out of this room with a decision.
Yeah, but
If we have questions.
I think though that we need to talk to legal counsel about that, because we can't blur
Okay.
certain lines
Yeah.
that may put the board and all of us in a state of liability. And that's always been my concern, because at the end of the day, we're gonna be judged in the court of public opinion no matter what.
Yeah.
But the thing is that if we can at least have a consensus and have solidarity in what we're gonna do, when we start getting drilled by the court of public opinion, we can at least all say, we agreed that this was in the best interest of all of us.
Mike, could you check to see if that would be acceptable?
Well, sorry, legal counsel would like to jump in, and Pete, Michael can answer that, and he has a question also for you.
I've listened to all the comments very carefully. What I'm taking from this is that you want the board to pursue a specific course so that you have the proper system. From a legal standpoint, I just need the direction to negotiate the terms of the purchase and the coverage agreement with Washington County. And so if you want a solid proposal no later than January 1st, 2023, then the shape of that proposal, again, this is what the directors of the district have to decide and resolve. But that resolution would be, we are going to pursue one option or another. And if it is the Motorola option, then we just need the broad resolution so that we can then implement it, because there's a lot of legal steps and legal considerations on exactly the terms of purchase, the terms of service, all of the details that the attorneys have to address. And so this can be done, and the work starts once the resolution is passed without a question. And then there's going to be lots of, I'd say, workshops with the different chiefs, and how do we get the contract that will best service everyone, okay? That's part of my job, and I'm dedicated to get that done. Now, I have a general question for the chiefs. Has anyone used the Motorola equipment in the past, and what's your experience using Motorola equipment? Because the balance is not just price, it's reliability, it's options, it's coverage, it's public safety, it's all the things that you guys know better than I do. So if anyone has experience, negative experience with Motorola, we would like to hear it now, and that would certainly be something to consider going forward. That's all I have.
I can say that everybody knows, I come from the South Florida area, down the Miami area, and we generally, you're talking about, Florida has 22 million residents in it, and fire departments and police departments primarily really rely on Motorola. Motorola has been my experience that it's very reliable. We have the Motorola hub down there in Plantation, so that, I mean, that may be one of the reasons they're so receptive. We've done tour of the plants. They've engineered things specifically for us, but then, you're talking about a lot of big city, urban, agencies. So there's a lot of pressure to be put on them. But I'm very familiar and very comfortable with the Motorola product.
Chief Kaczynski and I both come from Washington County, where we went through this transition from what we had to their new P25 Phase 2 system. I won't say it didn't go into play without any hiccups, but for the most part, I mean, that system from when it started, I think in the early 90s, when the transition happened there from VHF 800, right, it had some quirks of manually changing channels, and as that technology progressed, right, we didn't have to switch to a repeater channel depending on where we were in the district, right? It was just as seamless. It worked probably 95% of Washington County, even in the rural areas, it works. Their new system, I ran a tech call up in the Clatsop State Forest a couple of months ago for Banks, way outside of any of our fire districts, and the only communication I had was with WACA in Clatsop County, in the middle of the state forest. So, if you look at what our neighbors are capable of in the systems that they've built, I think we would be foolish not to take advantage of a 40% 2017 price reduction and at least move forward with, okay, yes, we're going to back ourselves into a corner of Motorola equipment in the tower sites and here at CCOM and the consoles or whatever that is. And if Vernonia PD wants Tate radios and you want Harris's and we want Motorola's, then that's what we do.
I'll tell you that Columbia River Fire District would put its support behind Vernonia, Miss Birkenfeld, and our law enforcement partners, as they're going to be the ones greatest impacted. It would be incredibly unfair to us to use our muscle to sway that when no matter what we're going to be okay. But I will say this is that the question that I have is, because you're going to need a levy. We're going to need a levy and we're going to need a bond. What's the drop dead time to have something on the ballot for 2023? Because I believe that we're either incredibly flirting with that or we're over. So now if we're looking on the ballot for 2024, you're talking about November of 2024. That's 2 years from now.
Could be May. Maybe do it May.
Could be May.
I mean, okay, so in May of 2024, it's still a year and a half out.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned if we could make it, if yes, it's quick, but if we could make a decision in December and not wait till January, I believe you could make the May ballot, correct? May of 23?
Possibly, yeah.
Okay, so
I know when we went for our levy, we made the decision in December and we were on the May ballot.
And I'll tell you, is Columbia River looking at probably pursuing that for some things that we have needs in our district? Yes. And I'm sure there's other districts and police agencies and school boards that are looking to put together levies and bonds also. And the longer we put it off, the more we're going to conflict with other levies that come up. And I don't know if CCOM wants to be in a position where they're competing with a levy that Columbia River, Vernonia, Mist, PD is putting up. I mean, I really just don't want to say, wait, and then when the moment comes, let's wait again. So that would be my thing that I would had in my hand, ask the board, please, for the love of God, let's just make a decision and not wait. And just
do we need a motion?
No,
Do we need a motion to make a decision in December, if possible?
Well,
make it in January?
I want to call on two people that have been having their hands up here for quite a while. I'm going to go with Chief Pritchard first.
Thank you. So first of all, going back a few minutes, I want to echo my colleagues' comments on not kicking the can down the road. We do need to make a decision. However, listening to the discussion, I'm not comfortable with some of the time frame and just the reality of when a decision can be made. We have to prepare ourselves that an initial decision is going to fail, and we're going to have to go again. We're not asking for just a couple $1 million. We could potentially be asking for, tens of millions of dollars. So to try and put a campaign together that's going to be ironclad and educate our communities and our constituents that this is what they need to do, we're fooling ourselves if we think we're going to be successful in May on a purchase of that magnitude. People are going to want information. They're going to need information. We haven't developed any marketing strategies, and that's going to take time. Yes, we do need to get going on this, but the reality is, even with a vote, that the taxes aren't going to be collected for a while. So we're looking 2, 3, maybe even 4 years out before we actually see something. To the question that the attorney asked, I don't understand why you're asking that question. I mean, that's like saying, what's the difference between a Ford and a Chevy? All this radio equipment works great. Again, locking ourselves into something without all the information is not going to be a smart thing to do. So, when we look at timelines, December is a very busy month for a lot of our districts. And trying to squeeze something in December might be very challenging. I think January makes the most sense, but that's just what Scappoose is thinking. Thank you.
Chief Michael Peterkin, let me respond and tell you why I asked the question. It's my understanding that another proposal is in the works or something on another system, and so I wanted to understand whether the Motorola system, when you think about the price and the option that the board has, very unique, to get equipment at 2017 price plus a 40% discount. If reliability isn't an issue, public safety isn't an issue, if you, the users, like this equipment, then it would seem incumbent upon the board to exercise their fiduciary duty to get the best system for the best price. That's why I asked the question. Second, is the advisory committee saying go with this Washington County, let's just call it the Motorola option, and that you don't want to see this other proposal? Or excuse me, let me restate it. You don't want the board to weigh this other proposal. Am I hearing the chief saying, let's go forward with the Motorola system because time is not our friend?
Well, neither is price.
Well, thank you for clarifying that. It was a little confusing, but ultimately you're right. It does come down to price. And I think that's what we need to understand is what is the prices of all of these systems, and can we have that information by December? Again, I agree with my colleagues. We need to make a decision, but we can't make a decision without information.
Can I just hold off for a second? Sheriff Pixley, your hand's probably turning blue from being raised so long.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. I agree with everyone else. We need to stop kicking the can down the road, but I also agree with Chief Pritchard. We're kidding ourselves if we're going to get a successful levy on the ballot by May. The one thing that we're going to really need is information, both for us and so we can sell it to the general public. What I would like to see, maybe either in December or early January before the decision is made, is get the whoever produced the engineering study, so if that's Motorola and Tate in the same room, so we can all kind of have a roundtable discussion, see each product side by side, have a chance to ask our questions that we have, and then maybe have another meeting a couple weeks following that to make a decision. to get something on the ballot. I would say November at the very earliest.
Thanks, Brian. Chief Medina?
Yeah, I mean, Chief Pritchard makes some very valid points, and so does Chief Sheriff Pixley. But my thing is that still that we need to get stuck on is that many of us have, I hate to use this cliche, but champagne taste, and in reality, Columbia County has a beer budget. Now, when you're talking about 2017 prices with a 40% discount, I concur with my colleague from Vernonia that, I mean, yeah, it would be great. I mean, I would love to fly first class everywhere I go, but sometimes I gotta do coach. I mean, and that's where we are. But I need to get on the plane, and I need to get to where we're going. We need to make a decision, and we need to achieve a goal. I mean, this has been going on for a long time. And it's like, we'll wait, or we'll say wait again. And one of the things that I don't believe we've really discussed a whole lot is the plausibility of actually getting a levy and getting the money. I mean, let's be pragmatic about this. Okay, you're talking about 2017 prices, and you're talking about a 40% discount. Does it paint us a corner? Yes. I just don't see how we're gonna get a better deal. I mean, let's be realistic. How are we gonna get a better deal?
We're not.
So then that actually already we're on a lane headed in this direction. So if that's the case, then let's just at least decide that. And I can tell you, on a solely for cost basis, that's gotta be the way we go. It makes sense, it's pragmatic.
And I think on top of that, we're talking, aren't we, $6 million in savings for not buying ISSI?
I mean,
and $2 million that we're saving for not buying a core, and $2 million for not buying another core, but we're getting 4 times redundancy because we're using everybody else's stuff.
I'm 100% behind understanding what you're saying. My question is right now, would you feel comfortable going to your board to ask them to approve something without a final dollar figure? We know that we said that it's going to be, pricing from, 2017?
Yes.
And we know 40% off. So
Yes.
great. But I think we do, unfortunately, need to wait to get this information from Motorola to have an actual dollar figure.
No, I mean, I see your point. I think that if I go to my board and I'm like, hey, here's the deal. We can look at other options, or I can present to you an option that gives you 2017 prices with a 40% discount. What do you want me to do? And I can tell you that my board is gonna say, well, the other options are nice, focus on this, find a way, make a way. That's what I believe we're getting, correct? Huh?
We have that, the 40% discount, but what's the annual cost gonna be?
And all of that does factor in, but we're not gonna get over the hump of the 2017 40% discount. I mean, because the annual cost, regardless of what agency we have, is gonna be what the annual cost is. But getting that equipment, that's a completely different thing. I think that it paints us into a corner. Do I like being painted in a corner? No, I believe that just on a humanistic point of view, it's good to have options. It would be nice. But let's ask ourselves, when it comes to money and dollars and buying equipment, do we really in Columbia County have that many options? Are we really gonna go to our constituents and tell them that we had an opportunity to buy equipment at 2017 prices with 40% off, but we didn't like it? I mean, I think that I would be hard pressed it's one of those, we may have to lump it. I mean, I just don't see another answer for it.
And on top of that, by the way, I need another $8 million because I need these other add-ons.
Right, it's
2022 prices plus the $8 million that I lost out on.
I don't know, let me rephrase that. I'm confident that we wouldn't be being fiduciary responsible in passing up a deal like this, because I'll tell you, if we pass up on it, somebody's gonna jump on it ahead of us. I mean,
right. And as long as we don't lose the opportunity by, like I said, January. But I think the nice thing is if we get all the information, and I'm assuming
in a perfect world
that this will be the cheapest, But I think we still need to get all the information, so when I go to the taxpayers with this large number,
Sure.
if this is the least, we can say, hey, look at this is the process we did. We spent time, we got all these quotes, and yeah, we are actually asking you for the cheapest option that it's going to be. I think it's just kind of hard to go out there without having the other costs to say, hey, you know, we tried to sharpen this pencil as well as we could.
Yeah.
Is there any chance that we lose this deal from C-800 in the near future if we don't make a decision?
Yes.
Okay, that right there
What's that timeline?
is pulling the pin and rolling the grenade into the room.
So
How many people would be comfortable with losing this deal? Because the continual cost that we're gonna pay is what the cost is gonna be. But we know we could lose this deal now.
So I see Jeff's hand up, and I just want a couple points. So that is, so the question about being painted in the corner is exactly where Michael Peterkin was concerned. If he's not public safety, doesn't work on radio, so that was his point of his question is, if your experience, your professional experience in your history has said that Motorola is not only the most expensive, but quality, it sucks, that's a different thing than just cost. So if cost wasn't the issue, would you choose to have a Motorola system based on your experience, yes or no? What was the bad parts about it? So that was that point. To your point, question of timeline for two things. You know, I'm pushing Motorola for the design, and it's really has been literally a very short window.
And I'm saying part of that is I know we haven't heard much from law enforcement. It sounds like on the fire side, definitely we want the links.
Yeah.
So I mean, if that even nukes a couple of them out for Motorola to say, hey, instead of you giving us 3, now we need this 1.
Well, I think that ISSI link is going to be important to the police. I mean, 2 times in the last week, we've had a kid go missing. Washington County Sheriff's Office sees the call, calls us, sends help, and they get there, and 2 of the deputies go, okay, now how do I figure out how to get to your radio channel? Because I have no idea where that is.
Yeah. To Chief's point on ongoing operational costs, that's real, but it's different. It's different if we own and operate it, because while we own it, even our current system, we don't operate it. We don't have technicians, so we would have to.
If we needed for Motorola to get done, which you're pushing them, are we still within a window to make that decision, or is that gonna push us outside that window?
I hope we can get it within the next month, but literally, they've had this request for about 2 months. How long have you been working with Tate? So it just takes time for those
I'm
guys.
just talking about
Yep.
the window, like they wanna go over to Washington County. How long before that option is no longer on the table?
So joining WCN has no time limit.
Okay.
It's an open contract anytime we want to.
So what's our timeline then?
Our time, I think we have 2 things. One, what you want it hopefully December, maybe January. I will be on the phone with them this afternoon to push as hard as I can. The equipment, is there a finite timeline? Absolutely. They want money yesterday. We started this conversation 3 months ago, 4 months ago. And not, I won't say weekly, but I'd say a couple times a month, ring, ring. How's it coming along over there? Are you on the fence? Are you thinking about it?
So what I'm saying is, would January still keep us in, like, would that give us enough time to have all the information, which, best options, the best cost,
Yep.
all that stuff, and still stay within that window, so that we don't lose it?
I think so. I think so. And just to put all the cards on the table, for financing, for bonding or levy, we have the resources of Special Districts Association. They are our lifeline on how we fund whatever we do, including all the options, everything from leasing, lease purchase, bonding, levy, combination, grants. Grants is like going to Vegas. So no guarantees, you're in competition, and there's lots of rules about them, and they only fund a few dollars. You all know that we belong to UASI region. We sit on RDPO. We're in competition with a tiny bucket of money. What UASI gets today, what we got 10, 15 years ago, is dramatically different. There's about $1.5 million, maybe $2 million for the entire state.
Chief, to add to what you said a little bit, I think that if in January we go, yeah, we're doing this, we want this equipment, they're gonna be so relieved that we committed to that, that of course I'm assuming, and we all know what that means, but that they may go, okay, well, to get into negotiations, to talk with somebody else, would take another 6 months, at least Columbia County's decided, and that I think locks us in. By January, we would have been 6 months deciding if we want 2017 prices and 40% discount. There's gonna be agencies that don't take that long to make a decision.
But I think that's my fear, right? Is
That's what I'm worried about.
Salem,
because
Cresta, whoever else has any.
somebody's gonna go, I'll take that deal.
Yeah.
And what's gonna preface that is, we come into the new year, we're approaching now a mid-year review for most budgets. July is staring them down the corner. They've given it to us for 6 months. We failed to make a decision. Somebody on their budgetary board is gonna go, guys, at what point in time do we not start looking around for somebody else who might want this? We've already come up with this number that we're running with Columbia County. Let's open it up to anybody else. And then we're toast. Because now we're gonna have to ask that much more money, that much more delayed. So at some point in time, we're just gonna need to stand tall and take it in the teeth. Because the risk of waiting past January and potentially losing all these deals is detrimental.
I don't.
It's detrimental to every single one of our agencies for a vast array of reasons. The primary of which happens to be cost.
Meetings, yes.
So I think that okay, we don't do it in December. I agree with a lot of things Chief Pritchard said. He's very poignant. He's very knowledgeable about these things. I would be going to him to ask him questions. When we do our things that we need to do. But I think pushing it past January is absolutely a mistake. I think come January we make a decision and then we just move forward.
And I agree with you. I'm not saying push it back to January. We're just gonna have all the information we need so that we don't go back to our boards and not have a final number. I gotta sell it.
I think there's still a chance we could have all the information in December. If you get, the tape proposals
End
in
of November.
if you get the information from Motorola, then
I'll schedule a joint meeting, and we'll work with the vendors on what they're willing to do, can do, and then.
And timing needs to be good. Like, for example, the one presentation is November 29th.
Yeah.
Right? It's around Thanksgiving. Most of my staff is gone. I mean, I'm gonna have to try to juggle some things to try to take it, but none of my board's gonna be around. Timing's got to be. If we're gonna do it in December, you got to be cognizant of the fact that after the 15th of December, it's gonna be pretty much very difficult to start. It's gonna be like herding cats to get everybody in the room to make a decision. So if you don't have it by the beginning of December, then January is a must.
Yeah. Chief Pritchard, I see your hand.
I'd like to jump in here and offer a potential path forward.
Yes, sir.
In situations like this, I've seen binding LOIs signed, letter of intent. This would communicate the district's intent to purchase the system based on certain contingencies. And it would allow the time to do the further study and take the steps that many in the room have discussed. But if you want to lock this down, then a binding letter of intent might be a way to go forward. The board would have to consider that, make appropriate resolutions, and give guidance. And of course, the binding LOI would have to be negotiated and the terms negotiated, but then both parties are in a position to then enter into a binding contract once the contingencies are met or waived.
Can the advisory board make a recommendation to the board to move forward on something like that?
Do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion that the advisory committee advises the board of directors to move forward with a binding letter of intent to hold that equipment until we can make a decision by a date, let's call it February 1st of 2023, whether or not we need that.
I second
Moved
that.
and seconded
Okay.
that we advise the board to pursue a letter of intent.
So that was comments, right?
So, hold on. So, any discussion now, Chief? Go.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Yeah, my point would be that I, February 1st, I would ask the board again, in an effort to not kick the can down the road, that the decision on whether we start the LOI and moving in that direction be done in the early January meeting. That
Well,
way.
if I'm not, I think the LOI could be started.
The
now.
LOI would be done now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well
Yeah.
then, I retract that, never
We're
mind.
advising today that the board start that process now.
Yes.
That's my understanding of the motion.
That is correct. Start today.
Yep.
That way we don't lose them.
Yeah, that would be good, and just communicating to them that we're in the process of LOI is gonna ease them and realize that we're actually trying to do something.
Yeah, yeah.
We're seriously interested in your equipment. Please don't get rid of it.
I appreciate the comment about the LOI, that's brilliant.
Brilliant. And I would say by February 1st,
We'll have a
write the
decision.
conditions of that LOI. We either meet them or we don't, and that is the end date.
And we'll decide that in January.
Yep.
Chief
Any other
Pritchard?
discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Any other discussion on the motion? Chief Pritchard, did you have something specific to the motion?
Well, I was trying to get in before the motion, but specific to the motion, I think we're putting the cart before the horse on this motion. We need to find out what WACA's intent is, Clackamas County's intent is with this equipment. And if they say, hey, we need a decision within a month, then we enter into an LOI. But to sit here and talk about doing an LOI without understanding what the conditions and the negotiations are, that doesn't make much sense. I mean, we're talking about a tight window here. Again, I agree with my colleagues from Vernonia and Columbia River Fire and Rescue. We need to move on this stuff. And, you know, this deal is a really, really good deal. But I have to go back to, we don't have all the information. We need to understand what it's going to cost to upgrade the sites once this equipment goes in. You know, my colleague from Columbia River was talking about the difference between, you know, Cat 4, Cat 5, and Cat 6 cable. Those are hard costs for building out the tower sites, the subscription costs. That's where these vendors make their money. We could get a killer deal on the equipment, but they can crush us on the subscriber fees on the back end. So, you know, I am definitely in support of trying to get this deal, but what we really need the board to do is to get the 911 staff to push Motorola forward to get us this information and have a drop dead date that other members of the advisory committee are talking about. Whether, you know, we don't go past January. Like, we do have to make a decision, but man, we need that information. Because when it comes to the hard costs for going out for a bond, you know, Scappoose is going to have to go out for a bond. We need to upgrade our station. And that's going to be a big decision factor for us, whether we're paying $10 million for a radio system or $50 million for a radio system. All that factors in. And I don't know what the other districts are doing, but we need that information, and we need it like tomorrow.
Noted. But I also like your new paint job on the station. Looks good.
Great comment on that. And again, I absolutely feel that colleague from Scappoose is making a very good point. But I don't see what it hurts just to do the LOI now. Because we can always decide not to do anything with it in January, but at least it's done. If we don't make a decision about the LOI, then if not now, then when? Because if not us, I guarantee you somebody's gonna take that equipment. So if we vote today on starting the LOI, it gives legal plenty of time to start setting it up and getting all the questions, so that if and when we decide to pull the trigger, hopefully when, we can, and everything's in place, and at least you can see that we're making some kind of a movement. I don't think because we can always write the LOI and have nothing, and the only thing that we've cost us is legal fees for it. And then we vote on January and go, yeah, you know what, no, we're not gonna do it. But at least it's there. So from the advisory point of view, I would ask the board to at least show signs of moving in a positive direction. And I believe the LOI, which is a great idea, is just that. It's a positive direction to show that we are actually making a decision.
Yeah. See Sheriff Pixley?
I'm supportive of the LOI as long as there's language written in there that allows us to back out once we get all the information.
And I'm looking at the attorney.
And I think that's in the motion, right? It has to be in there that we will make a decision by February 1st, 2023, whether we're purchasing or whether we're backing out. So that we have an out. But we need to at least show interest that we want the equipment, that we are seriously looking at a direction.
Well, I would say not that we're backing out, but that it's free to go to others.
Right.
So I wouldn't say, I'd just be more wishy-washy about it.
We're just asking them to hold it for 4 months.
Yeah.
Full deal.
Basically.
Yeah.
And then if we don't move forward, then they're free to pursue
Do whatever they
it.
want with it. Sell it to somebody else, hold on to it, part it out, whatever.
Well, rest assured, they're gonna move and do what's in their best interest no matter what, just like we're doing.
And they have to recoup money. And they're
Right,
free.
but the thing is, I think that the LOI sends a message that we're interested. We're interested.
Keeps our option on the table.
Yeah, I don't want to lose the option.
All we want.
That's it, just the option and to communicate that, yes, we're moving in that direction.
Any other discussion?
Chief Pritchard?
Yes, sir. I agree with my colleagues on all accounts. The LOI is something we should pursue, but before we lock ourselves into a date, because we don't know what kind of information we're going to get, can Columbia 911 ask, the folks that are willing to give up the equipment what their drop-dead date is before we set a drop-dead date for us, just to give us some wiggle room in case something funky happens.
Certainly, I can do that this week.
So I think the board's heard our discussion and understands our intent. We're advising them to pursue that. It's up to them to work out those details. So.
Yes.
What's that?
Go ahead. You got something, Chief? No, do we need a vote?
Yeah, so I just wanted to summarize really quickly. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
Can you restate the motion, please, before I vote? There was a lot of discussion.
A long time ago, I don't remember.
The motion on the table
LOI
is to advise the CCOM board to put out an LOI with C800 for the purchase of these tower sites. If we're gonna let Fletcher decide on what that flexible date is, that's fine. Otherwise, February 1st, 2023, our advisory council and the board of directors would make a decision whether we're purchasing or we're not purchasing that equipment.
And just to confirm, Rob, you said tower sites. I thought we already had the tower.
So I need to point of order here. We're done with the discussion. We're voting. So I think.
And the vote passed. Yes.
Oh, it did pass. Sorry, I'm screwed up. Sorry, Chief. Go ahead. Sorry.
And Chief Pritchard, you're correct. Towers, it's synonymous.
You can put Scappoose down as we're not voting.
Abstaining. Okay.
Okay.
Just to clarify for the chief, towers is not their sites. The site equipment is what, it's just radio equipment for sites.
Well, I think I'd like to make a motion to enter the LOI, and I don't know the exact language, but I think we need to move forward. So, as stated, you know, the February date. Try to tie up this equipment. This is too good of a deal to not at least try to tie up and look at. Doesn't mean we still can't go another direction.
Correct.
If we so choose. So that's my motion.
All right, there's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion.
So, just to be clear, I want to clarify, the motion on the table is to authorize Mike and legal to enter into an LOI, and again, definitely an LOI because it's non-binding.
Correct.
With Clackamas
C800.
C800 upon purchasing their surplus 800 megahertz equipment. And you're going to clarify with them on what is their drop dead date for the
Yes.
LOI.
Correct.
And we're not, so that motion did not include a date, is that correct?
Correct, because
Be
it's going to,
dependent
we're
on-
going to see the
Dependent,
flexibility,
okay.
rather than, you know, C9, C800 going, well, we don't like that date, so ask them back to us a month later.
Right.
I think Mike clearly understands, and legal, who's monitoring, clearly understands the intent.
Yes.
Yeah, my question though for legal is how fast will this letter get compiled and sent out to Mike for review? I'm assuming you're going to review it.
Yes.
Well, a letter of intent can be drafted and submitted, and as long as the opposing legal counsel agrees and the county agrees, we can get that done fairly quickly. Normally an LOI will have some terms like the target price and you know, the contingencies like bonding and et cetera. So we can include a lot of the particulars in the LOI and then have language that, of course, it's not binding on the district, but we do want it binding on the seller that they can't sell to another party while the LOI is in force.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Thank you. I just wanted it clarified. Okay, all in favor? Signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Shelley still on?
Shelley, are you still on there?
Yep, aye, sorry.
Okay, motion passes.
I thought I saw the sheriff again, just waving.
No, I'm sorry, that was a wrong button.
No, no problem. All right, wow. I think I have no update. Are we done with radio? Moving on. I have no update on the ambulance service area. Again, that's in the hands of the county. So that concludes
Old business.
old business.
New business, Mr. Fletcher.
New business in your board packet is a MOA, a memorandum of agreement between the association and the district. It's centers on the changing our on-call language, on-call dispatcher language, and we're accommodating a current dispatcher who has been with us for 5 years, I think. It's been no secret from the moment he was hired here, he was looking to become a career firefighter. He's well on the road. He's in his paramedic rotation, and he's on the cusp of leaving. So he needs to do his, what's the correct term? I've lost it, my brain, but
State exam is one. State exam is
he's internship. Thank you very much. So his schedule's not as available as it used to be, and we want to accommodate that because he's a very valuable, very talented dispatcher, and we know we're going to lose him, but we try to keep him as long as we can, and that's what this MOU is really all about. So The district legal counsel, labor firm has vetted it. The association's legal firm vetted it, and we're all in agreement with the language. So looking for the board's approval.
Mr. President, sorry to interrupt if I can,
No,
real
go
quick,
ahead.
just as a point of order, we've already exceeded our time. for
I
today.
asked, he said we're okay.
I'm not too sure what that time limit is.
It just, all we have to just say is to take a motion to extend the meeting.
I'll take a motion to extend the meeting.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and
Yeah,
seconded.
sorry, everyone, that's how we limit ourselves to how long this meeting drags on for.
I don't think we need a discussion on that, do we?
Yes.
Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay, moving along.
Moving on.
So you need a motion for that?
Yes, I do.
Is there a motion for the CBA agreement?
So move.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a second. Is there any discussion on it? Not hearing any discussion. All in favor? Signify by aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Okay,
Thank
passes.
you. CFO recruitment. Maybe it's a big surprise, but Nancy's trying really hard to retire. And we are having significant challenges. Significant challenges on recruitment for her position. We are engaged with SDAO, who's attempting to assist us, but barring that, our next option is to hire a recruitment firm. I don't know exactly how much does that cost. There's different models out there. Sometimes it's a percentage of their wages, et cetera, as a fee, but I'm just informing the board. We've been doing this for how many months, trying to post her position over and over with very limited results. And so, again, this is more of a notification. These are the actions we're taking, SDAO, and then we're going to go out for a contracted firm to help us.
Okay.
Anything else on that, Nancy? Okay. Her retirement party for everyone is moved to next week. It's Tuesday?
November 1st at 1 p.m.
Yeah, okay. So everybody come on down. Food and drinks on us.
It's cake and coffee.
Yeah. Well, drinks, yeah. Cake is in the food pyramid. Next up is SDAO conference is scheduled for February 9th through 12th, and I believe it is in Sun River? Yep, Sun River this year. For the board members interested, we need to have your at least verbal commitment to Mary Jo and Nancy as soon as possible so we can register you and get rooms.
Check.
We've already got rooms.
Oh, we got the
Some
rooms.
yeah.
Excellent,
So I
okay.
just need to know who wants to go.
Yep.
Next up is Northwest Leadership Seminar. It's scheduled for March 1st through 3rd. I think it's still being held at Jansen Beach.
Pretty sure.
Again, so if you could contact us for your interest, we will make that happen. Last up is directors, and I think I've spoken enough, so that concludes my reports. We were not holding executive session. Our next meeting, so this could work in our favor. Our next meeting is actually scheduled for November 17th. However, I might make a suggestion. If we get Motorola's information, if we get the information from Tate, I'm just going to throw it out there. What is the level of interest for a repeat joint meeting of the board and the advisory committee for December 1st? If I can get all this information, if I can get the vendors to cooperate, make an all-day extravaganza out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think if you push it past like the 20th of November or the 22nd of November, it's tough for me to get the people that I need from Columbia River to be there. So that would be great if you can do it earlier.
It'd be December 1st.
I'm sorry, December 1st? Oh, that's easy. Yeah.
You talking about just a joint meeting, or would we have a workshop so more participants could partake and then go into a joint meeting?
That's a great idea.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'll find out Otherwise, the board is scheduled for November 17th. But again, the challenges of Thanksgiving, and so just want to throw it out there that maybe December 1st might work. Okay.
Yeah, generally, we're in agreement.
Okay.
with the advisory.
Well, let me see what I can do. Mr. President, that's concludes.
All right. Is there any other business for the board? Hearing none, thank God. Members' comments. Go ahead, Jeff.
I was finally glad to get some sort of direction going here, like we talked about, kicking the can down the road. Once the decision's made, it's gonna still take a long time, so. And I think it's too good a deal to not at least try to tie it up, so.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson.
Thanks to the Fire Defense Board for letting us hijack your meeting date. I think it was a very constructive meeting. I think a lot of information was shared, and I think we're moving forward. Still waiting to get more information to make a well-educated decision. So thanks again.
Shelley, you still there?
She is.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I concur moving forward with getting something with these radios. I'm glad everybody's open to making sure Vernonia is covered in the other outlying areas. That's good to hear. So, that's it for me.
Good. I have no comment. Meeting adjourned.
I'll adjourn the advisory committee meeting. Thank you all. I appreciate the discussion.
Goodbye.